Hello everyone, Storm here, and today I'm going to be talking about Breaking Bad. More specifically, what I believe to be the biggest missed opportunity within the series. Now, because this is my first time talking about this series on the channel, I'm not going to expect everyone to have watched it, so make sure you do so, as this video is going to have major spoilers for both Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, as well as El Camino. But before we discuss what I believe to be the biggest missed opportunity in Breaking Bad, I need to talk about motifs and what they are within the series. So a motif is pretty much a recurring thing that kind of reinforces themes within a series or music or anything like that. But a leitmotif is something that happens with specific characters or specific settings or themes, emotions, stuff like that. So they're a lot more specific. So a few examples of motifs and leitmotifs within Breaking Bad are Walter telling Skyler that there is no danger in order to assure her they and he are safe. Later, when Skyler realizes there is a danger, Walter desperately proclaims that he is the danger, horrifying Skyler at her husband, but also for him, as he's in over his head. And then finally, after beating Gustavo Fring, Walter tells Skyler that he was the danger, in order to reassure her, but Skyler doesn't buy it. The danger isn't something Walter is being forthcoming about, and she calls it out by saying,
"I thought you were the danger."
To which he has no response. Another example would be in the first episode when Walter records a confession tape, and in the last season, Walter does the same thing, using the exact same words to open. But it's not done as a genuine attempt to make his family understand him, it's done as a way to frame his brother-in-law. This shows how much Walter has progressed as a criminal, and so does the vibe of the confession, as Walter is no longer the man who struggles for words as he shakily holds the camera, and is instead calm with a camera set up, and delivers a very professional looking confession. You could also see this as Walter using more genuine words and emotion to talk about his own crimes, but he's all business when talking about someone else's. And the final example we're going to talk about for now is the one most relevant to today's discussion, and that is the ricin. It's well known as the biggest Chekhov's gun in the series. Walter planned to use it in Season 2 to kill Tuco, but it didn't work. Jesse planned to use it in Season 3 to kill the dealers who got combo killed, but it didn't work. Both Jesse and Walter had a hand in the attempt to use it on Gus in Season 4, but it didn't work. Walter stole it from Jesse using Huel, but made him believe Gus took it, so Jesse thought Gus used the ricin to poison Brock, but it ended up being Walter who poisoned him with something other than ricin. So in Season 5, Jesse realizes this lie and goes after Walter. What was once the thing uniting them against Tuco and Gus was what destroyed their relationship later on. They wanted to kill Tuco in self-defense, but ultimately Walter ended up using it on Lydia in Season 5, really just because he wanted to. Although I guess you could argue maybe Lydia would have sent someone after Walter's family after finding out what he did. But yeah, the ricin was pretty important and had a role to play in 4 of the 5 seasons, despite only being used one time in the final episode. And even then, it managed to tie up the final loose end in Walt's reign as Heisenberg. But what was the original plan to kill Tuco before Walter came up with the ricin idea? It was Jesse, with a gun. More specifically, a Ruger SP101. Now, they showed Jesse buying the gun as a hasty attempt to defend himself from Tuco, but after episode 7 of Season 2, this gun is nowhere to be found. Some theorize that Mike took it during his evidence sweep of Jesse's house, but listen to the dialogue Mike says.
"Any other drugs in the house? What about guns? You got any guns in the house?"
He asks if there are any guns, but specifies if there are any other drugs. Now, we know that there were drugs in the house, so Mike asking if there were other ones makes sense. But the gun that Jesse had should be there. However, Mike doesn't specify other when it comes to guns, implying he didn't find that one. But yet, Jesse doesn't have it, so it's just gone. So where did it go? Did they just forgore? Bravo, Vince. No, but seriously, this is a minor nitpick, but when you look at it, it's kind of huge. Jesse uses another gun in Season 3 in an attempt to kill the dealers who killed Combo and Tomas. But Walter prevents him from having to do that by taking out the dealers himself. However, in the next episode, Walter needs Jesse to kill Gale in order to save their lives. And Jesse uses the new gun to do it. So isn't that kinda cool? Walter stopped Jesse from having to kill, only for Jesse to have to do it anyway on his orders. Yeah, but Jesse never gets this gun on screen, he just has it. Now, it's obvious that he just bought the gun off screen, much the same way he did before, but why not show us? In fact, every other gun Jesse and Walter use has direct origin aside from one. I already said that Jesse bought the Ruger. Mike gives him a Taurus revolver in Season 4 before taking it back. Jesse also takes a Taurus pistol off of a dead cartel guy in Season 4 and kills Joaquin Salamanca with it. In Season 5, Jesse wields an AMT backup with origins not known at the time. I say at the time because Jesse later steals a gun of the same make from Saul, and there's even a bonus scene of Saul giving Jesse the first one. In fact, Saul even points out that he got the other one as a 2-for-1 deal, so it's totally cut and dry that Saul just had 2 and gave one to Jesse. In El Camino, Jesse steals a safety hammerless and a woodsman from his parents' safe. He also steals a Ruger pistol from Todd and takes a Kimber Ultra Raptor 2 from Neil's corpse. Walter takes Crazy 8 Smith & Wesson and the pilot, takes one of the dealer's guns in Season 3, buys an untraceable Ruger in Season 4, steals Mike's Taurus in Season 5, and Walter buys an M60 in Season 5 as well. The one gun Walter doesn't receive on screen is the revolver he takes from his vending machine at the car wash. And I'll admit, this does hurt my case of every single gun being shown to us. But this is during the time when Walter is being framed the most as a villain of the story, and he's consistently hiding things from people, so I am willing to let this slide as just sort of a gun he pulled out. Although some people do think that this is Jesse's revolver and it's not, although if it was, I guess this video wouldn't exist. So now that we've established that Jesse's first gun just disappears and his second gun appears on screen at least out of nowhere, it's also funny that the gun changes models in the next episode when Victor confiscates it, but is back to the same model when Jesse has a flashback of killing Gale. So now, what is all of this for? Am I just here to talk about Jesse's various guns and point out a plot hole? Well, no. Well, yes, but not just that. Remember the ricin and how it became the show's biggest Chekhov's gun? Well, I propose that turning Jesse's first gun into a Chekhov's gun would make Season 3 feel so much stronger. I'm now going to go through a slightly different version of events where Jesse kept that gun and what it would mean for the symbolism, the narrative, the story as a whole, and various parallels it provides. So let's go ahead and start. The Ruger stopped appearing in Season 2, Episode 7, and I think that's just fine. But it should make another appearance, with Jesse giving it to either Skinny Pete or Badger. This could be anywhere from episodes 8 to 12. You could do it earlier as Jesse doesn't want to weird out Jane by having a gun in her complex, or you could do it later. Maybe he wants Skinny Pete and Badger to have some sort of defense after Combo's death. Or he gives it to one of them as a parting gift after deciding to quit the business and later leave the country with Jane. Or maybe Mike does take the gun when he's sweeping the house, but gives it to Saul to keep for Jesse if he needs it. Maybe Jesse even tells Mike to give it to Walter since he wanted it before, and Mike takes it to Saul so he can do it. Any of these 5 choices would work for me. Because what this allows for us to do is have a scene where Jesse gets the gun back to kill the dealers. This would either be from Saul or Skinny Pete or Badger. Whoever it is would warn Jesse not to do whatever it is he's about to do, but Jesse means business, and they're forced to give it to him. They'd also bring up the ATM thing and how doing it for real is going to be different. Is Jesse going to be able to live with himself? And while Jesse shrugs it off, we later see in the series that when he kills Gale, he can't live with himself. He's out of it for the first chunk of Season 4 because he killed someone. And so Jesse would take the Ruger to kill the dealers, only for Walter to come in and save him. However, the next episode, Walt calls on Jesse to kill Gale, and he does, using the same gun that he had in store for Tuco, Spooge, and the dealers on Gale of all people. Later, Victor confiscates and melts it down, somewhat symbolizing the end of an era, much the same way the RV's destruction near the midpoint of the series did. There is no more build-up or Chekhov's gun to kill Gus with. They are stuck with him. Now, what purpose does this serve? I mean, it's cool and all that he uses the same gun, but I pretty much just told you all of the same events from the show with 2 gun-swapping scenes added in. In terms of plot holes or unsatisfying moments, we already talked about how Jesse's first gun disappears, while his second gun just exists, so it clears that issue up perfectly. It also would mean the model wouldn't change when Victor takes it, but as for the narrative and storytelling aspect, well, let's talk about it. They put a decent amount of focus into Jesse learning how to use the Ruger. Jesse doesn't even know how to open it at first, but after Walter prunes him on the specifics of how he will kill Tuco, Jesse finds out how to open it. Wouldn't it be kind of satisfying if the gun Walter caused him to learn how to use was the same gun he used to carry out Walter's order to kill Gale? As a matter of fact, I remember Jesse trying to convince Walter that him using the gun on Tuco was necessary because it's him or us.
It is him or us, you understand? It is him or us!
And when Walt tries to convince Jesse that they have to kill Gale, he's repeating that same idea.
But when it comes down to you and me versus him, I'm sorry, but it's gonna be him.
It's also interesting to note how Jesse is so much more collected when discussing killing someone now, which makes sense because Tuco and Gale are not exactly similar. But it also speaks volumes for Jesse's growth in just 2 seasons. And back to Walter's pruning. When he asked Jesse the specifics of how the Gale situation went down, it's super reminiscent of him asking how he will kill Tuco. All the way down to 3 lines matching with each other almost perfectly.
Specifically, how would you do it step by step? Listen, we gotta go over this step by step. No, I need to know specifics. And how many shots for him? I mean, he's a big guy, right? How many shots does that take? How many times did you shoot him anyway?
The first time, it's Walter trying to prove to Jesse why his idea to kill Tuco is a bad plan, and the second time, it's Walter forcing Jesse to relive the trauma of his own bad plan. With all of these things connecting these two situations, wouldn't it just be cool if it was just the same gun? Let's also talk about how they decided not to use the gun on Tuco in favor of the ricin. Jesse later tries to handle the Gus dealer problem with the ricin, only to eventually sub it out for the gun. Only just like with Tuco, neither one ends up coming to fruition, at least not in the way they thought. A gun is used to handle the Tuco situation, just not the one they expected. Just like the dealer situation was also closed with a gun, but not the one they expected. And the Gus problem that resulted from the dealer situation was also closed with a gun, but the person killed by it wasn't who they were expecting. I'm of course referring to Gale here. Again, if it was the same gun, it would be a perfect finish to what they started back in Season 2's first episode by the time the gun is destroyed in Season 4's first episode. I've talked a bit about the many targets of this gun, but let's dive a bit deeper. Jesse wanted to meet and kill Tuco because he was a deranged lunatic who beat people to death with his bare hands, and they were probably next. But the criminal world doesn't always work that way. Jesse didn't kill Tuco. He didn't kill Spooge, a complete lowlife who abuses his wife, neglects his son, and shoots up drugs all day, or in my version, even the dealers who made Jesse's girlfriend's brother kill Combo, only to kill the boy too. Instead of any of these people, the gun is used to kill Gale, a mere cog in the system. A guy who is probably the least violent criminal we've seen and the nicest. It's not really self-defense like it would have been with Tuco or revenge like Spooge or the dealers. It's just straight up murder because Walt and Jesse value their own lives more than Gale's. And I know I'm throwing these terms around kind of loosely. I'm trying to speak from a layman's perspective, not really legally. So when I use these terms here, a murder is just anything that isn't self-defense. Or at least like defending yourself from an aggressor, because I guess technically with Tuco they didn't know if he was going to kill them, but they were pretty sure. So like he would have been the aggressor and them killing him would have still been kind of a defense. We can also mention the flip-flopping of this gun between Walter and Jesse. Jesse bought it, trying to convince Walt they should use it, but Walter disagrees, only for Walt to later see the threat and take it for himself. But eventually, Walt returns it. Wouldn't it be so much more impactful if Walter eventually gave Jesse the means to kill Gale as well as the order? If Jesse's idea from Season 2, turned down by Walt, was used to save them after all, with Walt being the one to give the green light? I don't know, man. I wanted to see if there was any further symbolism I could give to the gun by having it stick around longer, like with the ricin, but I think destroying it at the beginning of Season 4 makes the most sense. I'm sure there's a bunch of you wondering why I'm so obsessed with Jesse using this gun specifically, so I decided to look over some of the other guns Jesse used in the series, and their significance as sort of a bonus round. They can have so much meaning if you really look at the context. Every other gun Jesse uses in the show, barring the first one, was given to him or he stole it. Or took it off a dead guy if you want to make that distinction. The first gun he gets, he buys himself. The one symbol of his own autonomy is used as a weapon at Walter White's discretion. You're not going to use it on Tuco. You're not going to use it on Spooge. And in my version, it extends. You're not going to use it on the dealers. You're going to use it on Gale, because that will save my life. I think that just hits like really well. Now let's talk about another gun. Spoiler alert for Better Call Saul, as I said in the beginning. In Better Call Saul, the Kimber Ultra Raptor 2 is used by Nacho to remove himself from a bad situation. Walter White later arms himself with a gun of the same make to kill Jack, before giving it to Jesse and consenting that Jesse remove Walter from his situation. But Jesse refuses, only to later take an identical gun from Neil in El Camino and use it to take out his gang. So I believe this makes it the last gun fired in Breaking Bad and the last gun fired in El Camino. And if not for Lalo's death, I think it also would have been the last gun fired in Better Call Saul. Jesse refused to kill Walter with it because killing Walter wouldn't have ended Jesse's story or his true pain. It only ends when he uses it at the end of El Camino to liberate himself from this life as a whole and can start anew. I mentioned Nacho because that means the gun was used to liberate both Nacho and Jesse, but specifically not Walter. Though of course Jesse's liberation is more fulfilling than Nacho's. The two of them often get connections drawn between them, especially regarding their relationship to Mike, so it's pretty cool that Jesse makes it out alive with the same gun that Nacho used just to make it out. Interestingly, Nacho took his gun from a living Juan Bolsa, whereas Jesse took his from a dead Neil, a complete inverse of how their guns were used to liberate them, since Jesse made it out and Nacho didn't. And that's just a few of the guns that Jesse's used within the series, and just talking about some of their connections and little fun facts that make them kind of important and cool to look at. I mean, of course, anyone who's watched Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad knows that there's always more to everything. If you just watch Breaking Bad, like, straight to the finish, and then never, like, look back and think about, like, certain moments and how they parallel each other, or references and, like, the scenery, or anything like that, I feel like you're only watching half of the show. Because that is something that they took very seriously, especially in Better Call Saul, which has even better cinematography than Breaking Bad, arguably. But everything I talked about in this video were just really cool comparisons, follow-ups, symbolism, and all that kind of stuff. This wasn't at all meant to discredit Breaking Bad, as I love this franchise with all my heart. I just think it would add a lot to seasons 2 through 4 to have Jesse keep the same gun until it's destroyed, and would give the series even more of those, oh, I didn't notice that kind of moments. There would definitely already be a video essay that mentions Jesse's gun and its symbolism for the exact same things that I'm proposing here. But with that said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. It really was just me picking out the tiniest details to explore to their fullest extent out of my passion for this series. As always, a huge shout out to our members, Ellie the Plug 2, Paul Keen, Hazy Brush, Marco De Cinco, Davisville 84, Willie, 23 Days Later, Aiden Kearns, Zombie Warlord, Yeah, Tifu A, Joel, and Chief Constituent. And if you want to see more Breaking Bad content, definitely let me know. But as always, tell me if you like this video, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.